Okay, the meeting is coming to order at 7:32. Has everybody looked at the minutes for whenever it was, June 2nd?
Yes,
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Done, thank you. All right, Katie sent me a little note that we have to appoint a new Regional Planning Commission representative. I think Bill Sayre was the commission, our representative. Now, Katie was supposed to be on so we could discuss this because I don't know exactly what it all entails. Does anybody know?
Hey, Bill, I think Katie will eventually jump back onto this meeting. Why don't we push that agenda item out after your land use talk? We can discuss it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Is there any new business? Okay.
I have a comment though, Bill. This
Yes.
is Tom.
Tom, hi, Tom.
I don't know if this is under new business or not. I was just curious after reading the material. Seems like a lot of this we're proposing here or considering is kind of a picture in time. I was curious about how we go forward considering the virus issue, how it's going to affect us all community-wise, and whether it'll affect our town plan in any way. Is that something we need to consider, or is that not something?
Well, it's certainly going to affect how we meet and how the citizens meet, but that we're all making a guess on how long the COVID would last. Hi, Bill. How are you? Unmute yourself.
Good.
Okay, good.
Thank
Tom,
you. You're
Tom,
the
are you
goat.
talking, I assume you're talking about how this particular incident is going to impact us, not just meetings and procedures, but long-term impact on our community as far as both residential and commercial growth and things like that. And should you look at how another incident similar or something along these lines could impact our community as a whole in the future? Is that sort of where you were going?
Correct.
I think it's a valid question. I have no idea how to include this into your
Yeah. We have a COVID disclaimer.
Could be. And I was wondering, Andrew, is it being addressed at the county level?
I would say you guys are the only ones at this stage in the town planning process, so you're sort of the guinea pig. So I think, like everyone, we're all sort of waiting to see what the economic fallout and then ripple effects is going to be from that. So actually, the economic development section is the one that we are slated to look at next. So that will certainly be a place that I think is going to require some thought and some comment, because that is where the immediate impacts are going to be, and they could certainly last years, if not the life of the next plan. But I mean, it's going to impact emergency services and town budgets and a lot of things. So I think the question is not, will it affect it? It's just how much.
It's fine. Something to consider, but let's go ahead and press on.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to pick this up because you sent us this, you emailed us, I think it's 3 sections, and Jeff rewrote part of one section, which looked very good to me. Did everybody read it?
Actually, Katie also rewrote it
Oh, she did
and sent it. We did it simultaneously.
So is this a combined of?
No, because I just got hers later. I think hers is better than mine.
Okay.
I think there may be some aspects from both that are worth keeping. So Jeff, would it be helpful for me to put it in the chat just so everybody can see it in front of them?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine. I think I sent it to everybody.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's got a copy.
Yeah, I got Jeff's. I did not see a copy of Katie's updates.
Yeah,
Uh,
Katie,
she,
I don't think.
I can email it to everybody. If I can find it. Sorry, I'm in the wrong thing here.
Which section are we looking at?
Land
so
use.
So, Bill, just to fill you in, we started on the land use section last time and made it halfway through. So if there's, we actually went, I think, past this section. I guess the highlights were simplifying the names of the existing sections. So village planning area instead of rural agricultural area, just calling it the rural planning area, and then the conservation planning area. And I think there were a couple places that folks pointed out that I had left a rural in front of conservation. So I'll make those changes. And then in the village planning section, I think towards sort of paragraphs 2 and 3 was what Jeff and Katie took on. So
I'm sending Katie's right now.
okay, I can also put it in the chat if it's helpful. She had a figure she wanted to add or suggested adding. So it may be worth waiting till she gets back so she can kind of explain that. But just reading through it, it's not, I mean, it's I would say it's making the language better for the most part.
Right. Okay, I sent Katie's to everybody, emailed it.
Do folks want to have a chance to read through that? Or would it be helpful to put it in the chat?
Put it in the chat.
Okay. We'll see if it'll let me. It's a little bit long. I had to do Jeff's in 2.
Put it up on screen share also.
Oh, that's a good point.
Might be easier to see.
See if I can do that. Okay.
There you go.
Oh. So the text in blue is what she added. So I could read that part out loud. So it looks like a bit at the beginning, village planning area. So this is added. This mixed-use development is the social and commercial center of Bristol and surrounding towns. Retail, commercial, institutional, and manufacturing entities interspersed with and surrounded by residential housing units has been the traditional mix of uses in this location. Development density is the highest along the historic Main Street block and decreases concentrically out from this location. And then a little bit of wordsmithing. And then she added the word compact to the development pattern of growth in the village planning area. And then she added an example of an accessory dwelling unit. See if actually, there we go. Is that a little easier for folks to see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She and I were trying to do the same thing, which just to make it flow a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a little choppy in the original.
So the discussion, that particular discussion about accessory buildings or whatever the term is, I think there's bigger issues than just that one aspect that need to be addressed village planning areas, you know, and it goes along with overall density with multifamily housing. So I don't think there's, I mean, I think it's fine to highlight, you know, accessory buildings, but there's other issues along with utilizing existing housing in this area better.
So Kevin, what's your suggestion?
I think at one time I had combined accessory building with, you know, there's some zoning issues that need to be addressed, and I think somewhere I had commented that we should be adding wording to address zoning issues for, you know, multifamily and duplex as well as accessory buildings. I guess my point is it's just not accessory buildings. There's other overly restrictive zoning right now for other adaptive reuses.
Just in general, I mean, from a zoning standpoint, and we touched on it a little bit a couple meetings ago, and Kevin, those are some of the changes you had suggested in the notes you'd sent, which is straight up density. Increasing the density allowances within more of the community would allow for better infill. And I think that's where you're trying to hit on. I mean, I've seen it, as I gave the example last time, down over Lover's Lane, where they're trying to build some more woodland apartments. They got caught up on density, and they're only able to build those big buildings and only put 2 units in it.
Right. So how do we get that into the plan so that it forces the zoning?
Somewhere's in here, I think you need to include, I agree, focusing, I think the accessory dwelling units are one piece of the solution. Somewheres there needs to be verbiage that point blank says that increasing the density allowances within the village planning area will allow for better infill within this area.
And utilization of existing housing.
Yeah. Better infill and reuse or repurposing of existing structures.
Maybe we can use that sentence you just said.
It looks like Andrew's typing it as we're sitting here.
I'm
Yeah.
trying.
I'm here.
This is like typing class all over again. Jesus.
Well, not so fast. Aren't you glad I'm back, Andrew?
I am, Bill. It's good to see you.
Okay, well, I appreciate your positive attitude. We have had this discussion several times over the years, as you might imagine. And what the last time we did, which would have been 2 or 3 years ago, I asked us to think about whether there is a lot to be said for the often single-family homes, in some cases 2-family homes here in the village, the kind of community that creates and the kind of character that creates for Bristol. That's altogether different than what you see in some places where they have increased density substantially and have packed many, or at least several families into what previously were single-family homes. I think there's a great many people in the village particularly who like the character the way it is. And so I'd like us to think about that.
I'm gonna, Katie, since you just got back in, hear what Bill just said.
Yep, I did.
Okay, so we're looking at the options that you and Jeff proposed rewording. And I think if you can still see the screen, that's your proposal. And the yellow is, let's say, a statement that's up for discussion right now.
Right. I think when you say increasing density allowances, it is kind of vague. And I think,
well, I mean, we're setting somewhat general goals here, right? And the specifics
right.
of zoning.
And I think we're already saying that in a way by saying that we're talking about infill, and that's a concept. I mean, this is a concept that's being talked about all over the state. I know Bill knows this. And the idea behind it is to really take a look at what you have and not change the character of what you have, but use, because our households have changed and sort of the makeup of families have changed. Sometimes we can have the same structures, but have more people in them, but not necessarily changing a single family home to a 5-unit apartment building, but have an accessory dwelling unit as a second story that someone rents. So you're, instead of one housing unit, it's 2. So, and it's something that has to fit into whatever zone. So you have to be careful how you say it. That's all. I guess that's my point.
So if I sound a little self-centered, I don't intend to be, but we have a duplex. We've had it for, I don't know how long, 35
Right.
years. It's non-compliant. There's a 4-unit apartment house across the street from us. It's non-compliant. So there's something out of sync, and it's not news, but there's something out of sync with what we say we want in the village planning area in particular, and what actually has happened, and there's something that's and we don't want it to happen anymore, or something. I don't know.
You mean you don't? I mean, I totally agree with you, Kevin. I mean, I think looking at your house looks like a big old grand house. I happen to know I didn't know it was considered a duplex, or it could have been accessory dwelling unit because it would have been smaller, but it's basically the same thing. You could have another apartment in there as well, and there'd still be room left over, and it wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood.
But I can't, because I'm on.
Right, I know you can't. And I think that we should be able to do that more, but we need to be able to do it carefully, I guess. And it's how, and this is definitely the trend in the state now, and actually across the country. But
I get it. There's a sensitivity. We don't want to end up being collective slumlords, but.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what people are afraid of, that is a different situation.
I mean, half of the large homes in this town that have been converted over to apartment buildings are not owner occupied. You change from owner occupied accessory dwelling unit to a 3 or 4 unit, nobody cares. I mean,
right.
I see it all the time. I deal with the violations, the parking issues. Saying that adding an accessory dwelling unit to a building doesn't change the character is an absolute misnomer. It changes. You add more bodies. You add more vehicles. You have 2 different. If you're renting it out and it's a semi-transient rental, a lot of folks are using them as Airbnbs, or even if it's a 1-year turnover. The long-term consistency and the feel of a long-term village in classic village in Vermont is the close-knit neighborhoods in single-family homes. When we lose that, what happens is we then push those single-family homes out to your rural areas. If somebody wants to live in a single-family home, they end up in the suburbs and up in the subdivisions. And that's not what we want to see as a growth pattern in Bristol. So somewheres increasing density, allowing some growth and bringing some things up to standard is fine. But mentioning that there still should be a focus on single-family homes within that village to keep the character. I think you can state both and then deal with the semantics and logistics in your zoning. I'm done.
That's right. I think we really are all agreeing, and it is really in the details. So that's, you know, I don't know when you say density allowances, that's something that's going to be in zoning. And that's later on in this section. I actually took out there were two statements, one about density allowances and this and that, because that really should be in zoning. I think what we want to say in the plan is we want to try to make some more smaller housing units. And it is happening but keeping the same character. And as much as, and I know maybe you don't agree with that, Chris, but I do believe that's possible, but it has to be done a certain way. And we had to figure out how that.
I mean, a great example would be is if the two houses on both sides of you were turned into 3-unit rentals, it would change the character of where you live today.
Maybe it really depends who lived there and what they were paying to live there, you know. And
But at the same time,
well, look across the street from me. I've got across the street, I have a big house that looks like a single family home. It's got 3 units in it. There are living in that building are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the middle house across from me. The next house has 4, and there's a couple of them are single people. So, right, that's an example. It's not like there's an overwhelming amount of people there. They dealt with the parking differently. They had more land to do that. That maybe is not the best example because those are expensive.
But they also threw 4 single-family homes in there, correct?
In the back, yeah. The little ones, yeah. So it's a mix. It's just a mix, and I think this is what I'm talking about, is that it's a mix, because there really is a need, I mean, for smaller housing units for people to live in.
yeah,
And
I mean, both ends of the age spectrum, older people, older couples who have sort of aged out of a big single family home, plus young families who are just getting started. You know, there's a house right down the street from me, divided in two young families with a couple of kids, and they couldn't afford a big house or a big rental, and they add to the character of this street. But obviously that's not every subdivision. So I'm not sure how you do that. But if you read we read the population and housing section for today also, and it makes, you know, 2 big points: declining or not growing population, but aging population, and housing prices going up. So people are priced out of the market.
And I'm getting a lot of this because I'm actually writing the regional plan on this exact issue, and been working with a lot of people in the state on this exact issue. And it is difficult, but there are a lot of really successful examples. And I was listening to a presentation, I think I don't know if it was at Montpelier, but they're allowing duplexes in any area of town, and they do not have to be owner occupied, which surprised me. And so far there's been no issue. So that's kind of, that's just, anyways.
Maybe for now, I know we kind of we started a little bit late, so thinking about the interest of time here and getting through stuff. Are there, I guess, more general statements or ways we can address this without getting into specifics like multifamily housing, but, you know, encouraging density while retaining a neighborhood feel, or is this something?
I think that might say that further down. I think it says that in the goals, actually.
So Rob does have something out in chat.
Oh, Rob, I missed you. I can stop the screen sharing if that would be helpful for folks to see. Can folks see chat and screen share at the same time?
Yeah.
Oh, now I just see Kevin, big. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Scary.
Sorry, get rid of it. Now I've got Rob's head. Okay, share. Oh, no.
Oh, Rob has, okay.
Rob, I like it.
Is that,
How do I get to that?
Go to chat at the bottom.
Okay.
Click on chat.
Yeah, I have a different thing than you do. I'll get there. I'll get there eventually.
so Rob wrote Rob, is this a quote to go in
Okay.
instead?
I was just trying to work through possibly restructuring what you had up there.
Mm. I'll read it for anyone who can't see it. Some
I got it.
intensity. No, I'm reading it for you, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
And repurposing of existing structures within the village planning area may allow for growth through infill.
I think that sounds fine.
Yep.
There just was nothing in there before. And I thought it needed to be addressed.
What's Bill Sayers' point of view?
Well,
Sorry, Bill.
I understand.
We've had this conversation before.
We had it back when we were working on the zoning.
Co-housing and the co-housing.
And the co-housing, but I will say, Katie, I've been pleasantly surprised on how well the co-housing has worked out.
Phew.
But I did raise the issue at that time, and I raised it before in the regulatory zoning section, and 10 years before that. If you want to go back 30 years, I was more like you were. So maybe that's how much older I am than you.
I don't think you're really that much older than me, actually.
Well,
I'm getting older by the minute.
it just seems that way some days. And maybe it's not just single family housing that I think defines the character of Bristol's traditional village. Although I do readily admit that there are notable exceptions, like Kevin, and there are others scattered around the town. I just think that by and large we're single family, but what it really is owner occupied family homes.
Right.
That's, I think, what Chris was getting at, is that owners tend to take better care of their property as a whole, not always, certain notable exceptions there, than people who don't own their home. So that's the type of motivation and attitude that I'm hoping to encourage. And now that you've got me thinking about it, the co-housing is largely owner occupied, is it not? I'm sure there's some exceptions, but
I think the young man who is filming our meeting right now is renting his unit there.
and that's fine. That's wonderful. What would you say of the overall proportion?
I think that maybe there's a couple people renting, but the and renting from owners that were there. Or well, no.
But Katie, you have owners.
It's a cooperative though. It's different. Yeah, it's cooperative.
Cooperative ownership. I know that.
But they also.
Getting to be
I just
like
wanted to say,
that.
yeah.
But that's okay. We make some exceptions. So that's the impulse I'm aiming for. So here's where there may be a compromise. If you had duplexes, which would be away from single family like I would prefer, at least they could be theoretically, and in many places are, owner occupied, both halves. That's an opportunity for compromise. I'm going to give you the example that I think I've used before where it can go awry, and that would be Rutland, where they were trying to get the same higher density, and so they said you can turn these older homes into 2-unit buildings, 3-unit buildings, sometimes more, and it's it hasn't turned out very well in many, many parts of Rutland. And I'd hate to see that happen to Bristol.
What has actually happened that is negative?
Well, the houses are not very well maintained, and the people don't seem to care about them as much as you see in most other Vermont villages, including Bristol. And many, many good people in Rutland, without any question. But in my view, the character of many of the neighborhoods in Rutland is much different than in Bristol and not as good as Bristol's.
So in many communities, there's ordinances like you got to keep your lawn cut. It has to look presentable. Do we want to get into that?
No.
I mean, that gets into.
I think we're all agreed. We don't like any attempt. And if you have to try and accomplish that goal through an ordinance, then you've already failed.
I agree.
The people should do it because they want to do it, not because they have to do it.
So if you want more density, are you still saying an owner has to be there living on that property?
Well, I think when we first started talking about accessory buildings, and I think there was a state law that passed about 20 years ago that went under the name of mother-in-law apartments or something like that. That was
Granny flats.
Was it? Okay.
Granny flats.
Okay, I hear you. Gotcha. That was kind of the idea, Bill, that it would be a relative, and I think in one of these versions of the plan or zoning, I don't know which time, we did have some reference to owner occupying at least one of the units in a duplex, for example. And there's no reason why it couldn't be both, but certainly one. So I'd like to explore, and then I'll let you say whatever you want, Katie.
I was just going to say, I think the key kind of concept here is that this, incremental. And if we want to look at trying to work more of these smaller units in, it should be incremental, maybe per zone. It's not going to happen overnight. Something that then can be adjusted if it doesn't work, those sort of things.
Well, it can't be adjusted if it doesn't work. If you open it up.
No, I mean moving forward. I don't
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean.
Because I get calls. I probably field 3 to 4 calls a month on people wanting to either convert to a duplex or add a accessory dwelling unit to their structures in this town. So that's the desire, and that's what we're seeing. Most can't occur. The density doesn't allow, or the accessory dwelling. I mean, one accessory dwelling unit that was requested the other day, that the accessory dwelling unit was going to be 300. It's a 2,500 square foot home, and it was going to be 200 square feet less than the home. They wanted a 2,300 square foot accessory dwelling unit because they didn't have enough room to do a duplex. So accessory dwelling unit was their end around. We had to say no, but it's a very fine line, and it's something you got to be very careful. Those floodgates, because once you do it, it's virtually impossible to restore it back.
So, that all being said, do we have a motion, or do we want to revisit this issue after some thought?
It's a pretty.
Well,
go ahead.
No, my question is, what is the issue specifically? Because we're not detailing what we're talking about. We allow accessory dwelling units there. It's a law that they have to be allowed. We're just what we're saying in this plan is we're encouraging it. Because we need to house the people that live and need to live in this town. I mean, I don't know, maybe other people don't agree with that, but that we do need to try to help provide more housing that's smaller and possibly less expensive. And that is one way to do it. And this is basically in the plan. This is what we're just saying, that let's, we need to entertain these ideas. We're not getting into the specifics of exactly how that's going to happen.
I started this whole ramble.
Well, I wrote it.
Well, so
So-
my point was, we are highlighting one of several ways for adaptive reuse, and it didn't seem right to me that we would identify one and not necessarily some other.
Oh,
one.
I thought I put, oh, was that in the goal? You made a comment about that.
No, I mean, the only thing we talk about as far as density goes is accessory dwellings.
Oh, okay. Well, I changed that. You made that comment and I actually made a change. Those were the comments that I then lost. I added in, I think it was in the goal. Was it in the goal or the policy, Kevin? You don't remember?
I did make some comments in the goals, but we were talking about this particular section, and
Okay. I
my
think it should be
comment was-
mentioning more than, it should be mentioning more, in my feeling, more than accessory dwelling units. So this is a draft.
and then so we've come on this whole philosophical discussion.
That's what you get. I think the way we need to think about it is to provide a variety of housing types. Maybe it stays as broad as that, not just single family homes. And it's not, we're not committing to anything that way, but we're saying that that's something that we believe in. I mean, I believe in that.
So there is in that, and I think I'm still screen sharing so folks can see this.
Oh, I can't.
There is a line at the end. Can folks see this, or should I?
I can't see it.
Yep, I
Do
can
I
see
need
it.
to?
I'll read it for you, Katie.
Why I want to see it.
So there's the next paragraph is about mixed use and more about commercial and industrial, but the last line of it is, it's crucial, however, that all new development be compatible with surrounding uses and does not change the character of existing neighborhoods. So I get the sense that that also applies to the residential aspect. So if there's a way to basically acknowledge that there is demand for smaller housing, and it could be considered, but anything has to basically retain that, as Chris said, the neighborhood character. And then maybe don't mention the accessory dwelling units and multifamily, but leave the door open for that discussion in the zoning, and maybe setting some sort of cap or coming up with the guidelines for how those numbers are increased. Is that a reasonable compromise? Or, because I agree, there's a huge need for affordable housing and smaller units as at either end of the spectrum, but getting there is certainly a challenge. And we haven't even talked about emergency response folks and going into multi-story units, which is also a challenge.
Oh, and how horrible it is.
Yeah.
So Rob stated, he put in the chat that you'd read earlier, some flexibility and density in repurposing existing structures within the village planning area may allow for growth through infill. And the only thing possibly to add, this process would allow for future growth while maintaining the village character.
Okay. I'm going to put that in there. and highlight it. I feel like we don't want to lose all our momentum here, and it's almost 8:15. So, but I feel like this is something we need to work out, and maybe folks can think about this, can be part of our assignment for next time, is thinking through the wording of how to do this. And does that seem reasonable to folks?
Yep.
Yes, I think that kind of talks about the Bill Sayers consideration about character of the neighborhood or the town. So yeah, I'd consider that later.
Okay, so
I think we can live with that for now, and then we'll continue our discussion later.
okay, I'm gonna stop the screen share there.
So if I ask one question, you can just say yes or no, because I didn't hear the initial, because I came in late. Oh, can you put that back up for a minute?
Maybe. Okay.
Well, basically, it's so. Is the general, or maybe there is no consensus here. I guess there isn't. But the due to future development is likely to occur in these areas as infill within the existing neighborhoods, such as, and people are feeling you don't want to have. I had ADUs, duplexes, and multifamily units. You don't want to have something like that. I mean, you don't want to have that language is what I'm getting. And this is infill. This is not, I guess what I'm not looking at this as new construction at all. But it's that whole, my question is, it's that whole sentence that people are not comfortable with. Is that correct?
Two out of the three things there look like new construction, and it would change the character of the village. And I think that's the concern that a lot of people are having with that.
Mean the illustration? When you say 2 out of 3, you're talking about the illustration?
Yeah, the illustration.
No, none of those have to be new construction. You can change an existing single-family home into any of those without...
Into a detached additional dwelling unit?
No, I didn't say detached. I mean, this is showing examples of ADUs, ADUs, just different ways of doing it.
Right. So, I mean,
but you could have. What? Sorry.
It appears from the illustration, and the way I interpret it is piece one is you convert the second story of your house into an ADU. The second illustration is you add on a mudroom / addition to the same structure. This is the exact same structure in all three pictures. And then the last one is you convert the little garage that's out back into basically a second house. Is that how that feels to you, Rob?
Yeah, so actually the second one does say via addition. So that's definitely construction, adding on, expanding. I didn't catch on that the garage was converted, so that is not a new structure, but a repurposed structure. So.
Could I just make one comment that, and I don't think nothing is going to keep the exact character of the village the way it is now, because there's economic and population trends that are going to move it in different directions. And if you simply say, and I know no one is proposing this, but if you simply say, we just want single family homes, then either you're going to have wealthy people from Vermont, or what I expect you'll see then is people from out of Vermont buying houses. We actually are seeing this already a little bit. So that will change the character. So character is going to change no matter what. And I don't think we want a situation where, a large percentage of the homes are owned by people outside of Bristol, outside of Vermont, who maybe come up for a month or two in the summer either, which is certainly a possibility if people can't afford to live in and keep up big single family homes. So nothing's going to be frozen in time. There's going to be a change. So it's what kind of change and how do you manage it?
We're certainly agreed on that.
I agree.
Nothing stays the same.
Yeah, there's a house just now around, just over on Mountain View that someone from out of state just bought.
Hey, my neighbors who are stuck in Florida are coming any day now, and they're going to have a solid 2 months in Vermont before they head back. So
Yeah.
It's pretty quiet. It's great
Yeah.
character.
That's not so bad, is
Sing-
it, Andrew?
Single
I'm
family
sure-
homes are expensive.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Trend doesn't show much of an increase in prices. Tom Wallace would be better informed on that than most any of us. However, I'm sure we can think of examples of where somebody high income, wealthy from outside of Bristol buys a home here and only comes during the summer. But I think it's going to be far from the norm, and it'll be a very small percentage even as you look into the future. So the question really is, how do we want to guide the future character of the village? And I just think experience tells me that owner-occupied homes, principally single family, has a much different character than ones communities that have more and more percentage in rental. But we'll defer the rest of this discussion to another time. I don't think we're going to convince each other of it this evening.
Okay, so that's going to be folks' assignment for next time. That one paragraph.
We want a report from you, Andrew, as to how noisy your neighborhood has gotten by next.
Well, there's a skunk. There's a skunk that's moved in.
That's not noisy, though. It's
No,
a different sense.
very quiet. Yes.
Yeah.
Silent but deadly.
Okay, so yeah. So the next question. So Kevin caught that I forgot to remove the density specification for the conservation planning area of 1 unit per 25 acres, which we had discussed last time. So thank you, Kevin. I will take that sentence out.
What did you decide last time about conservation?
Oh, nothing.
That we should switch everything to preservation, Bill.
Oh, okay. That's what happens.
I changed
You
the
missed
word
the meeting.
conservation. No, that I'm gonna pull up my document here. So the section had initially said residential development is presently permitted only with a density of 1 unit per 25 acres or at a higher density, only as a part of a planned unit development.
Yeah.
And I think we decided that that was getting too much into the zoning, and then it would be better to say that residential development is permitted only at a much lower density than other planning areas.
Well, you do recognize that that's been a key part of the compromise for almost 40 years. I mean, 24.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, you do now.
How would I know that?
Yeah, well, no one knows that but you.
And what you do know is that 1 unit per 25 acres is pretty small, pretty low density. And you look around at towns, I know there's some that have that low density, but there's a great many that have the lowest density of 1 of 10 acres per unit. So I think there's a risk if we take it out that it could be lost at some future point as the zoning is rewritten, and somebody will say, well, the plan only says that there's lower density. There's no more specific guidance than that. So I think to me, it's very important that we keep this marker.
I'm okay with that.
Great.
Okay.
I don't think anyone wanted to change the number. It was just the specific it being, but that makes sense.
Thank you. I appreciate that consideration.
So I was right to leave it in, is what you're saying.
Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, Andrew.
Okay, so you're gonna love this next part.
Okay. I put my seatbelt on.
So the specific land use issues section we started to touch on last time, and I think we basically left it that we're not taking out everything, Bill, but most of that resource extraction section, have it in an appendix, so it was retained, to document the long and sordid history of resource extraction arguments in Bristol, and basically try to condense it into approximately a paragraph of the key points. So here I can do, I guess folks probably have this, but I can do a screen share if it's helpful. So
Is this under specific land use issues?
yes.
Okay.
So the resource extraction, the blue, can you guys see my screen at this point? If you're not following along on your own paper. So it would be the extraction of soil, sand, gravel, and rock has been a contentious issue for the community of Bristol, parentheses, see Appendix A or talk to Bill Sayer, on the street or whatever. The extraction of these resources should be permitted, at least in limited areas in Bristol, but only when it can be done in a manner that takes into account this long list of things: public health, safety, and welfare, to include such matters as aesthetics, visual, and sound impacts. Bill pointed out that noise is pretty similar to sound impact. So we could remove that for ease of reading comprehension. Air quality, water quality, size of the excavation area, hours of operation, reclamation plans, traffic and erosion.
So my only question on this, Andrew, is just having reviewed an Act 250 permit for the extension of a gravel pit. This is all criteria that's part of the Act 250 process, and all gravel pits have to go through Act 250, I believe.
So you're saying it would simplify things just to refer to Act 250 requirements?
I mean, unless we want to get more specific than Act 250, which I don't know. It just seems all of these things, when you go through if you go through the Act 250 criteria, almost all this stuff gets touched on, it seems like.
But I guess there is always the possibility that Act 250 restrictions might be changed or in one direction or another. We can.
And oftentimes Act 250 will say, well, does it reflect the town's plan?
That's it. That's a big one. Criterion 10.
Yeah.
And it goes right to that every time.
So
it can't hurt to have it in. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I mean, it's certainly.
Well, okay, so how would you add it? What's the verbiage?
I would leave it as is then. Wouldn't change.
I think it's a good summary.
Okay.
Agree. I agree, and it's pretty specific, particularly with the village area.
Yeah, I left that clause in and kind of separate, so it wouldn't get lost in the preceding paragraph. And then the rest of it, as I said, would be or conserved in an appendix.
So the only piece, one thing I wanted to discuss was the quarrying. We punted it last time we did the extraction piece. Right, Bill? We said, we don't have enough information. We don't know what quarrying is, so we just want to deal with it. The reality is almost all of the extraction that goes on in most gravel pits, there's some level of quarrying by definition. They're they're breaking up ledge, they're blasting ledge, they're then crushing that product into gravel. It's the only way we can keep utilizing existing gravel pits. So that is quarrying. So calling it prohibited, I really think this commission needs to look at removing that clause, and maybe saying that quarrying will only be allowed where resource extraction is permitted.
And where is resource extraction? Basically the preceding paragraph. Do other folks have an opinion on that?
Oh, what Chris said makes sense.
So, Chris, can you remind me that last part? Where resource extraction is allowed?
Yeah, where is permitted, where resource extraction is permitted.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is it's not permitted in any place in Bristol.
It is allowed out in the rural zones. It's not allowed in the village planning area. But out in the periphery, you could have, somebody could go through the process to open a new gravel pit if there was one that was allowed, if they were able to meet everything that's required. And that's been that way since we wrote this way back when. But in the village planning area, it's prohibited. So you couldn't quarry in the village either. But like I said, a lot of every gravel operation that I know of is a combination of extraction and quarrying. And it's the only way for them to continue to use existing gravel pits. You're on mute, Katie.
Oh, I muted her.
Thanks. So what, is this a change? So, well, first of all, let me back up. That paragraph, you refer to the village planning area. So extraction is not allowed anywhere in this area, but extraction does exist in the village planning area now, or is that beyond the area? That's beyond, isn't it? There's grandfathered areas, isn't there, in the village planning area, Chris? Is Lathrop's in village planning area or not?
Lathrop's doesn't have a gravel pit.
Well, no, okay. What my question is that when you say quarrying will be allowed in areas where resource extraction is permitted, but that could mean where it has been going on for a long time, but now no new extraction is permitted. So an area that might be grandfathered. Are you guys following me?
Correct. So any existing gravel pit,
right?
Whether it's in the village planning area or not, if they needed to blast ledge in their pit, that this caveat would allow that to occur. That's all that's saying.
Right.
Is
that new from what we had before? Is that different from what we had before?
Yes. That's why I asked for a change.
Okay, that's a big change. That
it is, but isn't. The reason why we left it there, and this is what I was getting at before. We put it in there, and if you look at the goals, and it was for us to do, as the planning commission, to do more research and gain more knowledge on quarrying, which never occurred. So to not have done its job and to just leave it in there blindly is not advantageous for the continuation of industry in our community that isn't increasing. All it's doing is allowing, it allows for existing gravel pits to be fully utilized instead of not being able to blast, crush, and process.
Okay, but I think to me, this is a substantial change in the quarrying and resource extraction arena, and I don't think that we should be making that change for one reason. That is not was not kind of part of this particular scope of work. And I think we need to have a lot more discussion about that.
Aren't you saying, Crystal, you're just matching it up with reality, what people are doing now?
100%.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it was discussed before and there was no, I just think
Yeah.
Are there any active quarrying locations, pure quarrying locations in Bristol today?
Does 100%
They all
quarrying, and
go ahead.
does 100% quarrying where they're only blasting?
Yeah.
There's only one, and that's an ag exempt site. And they're blasting ledge and crushing that into gravel to use for farm roads.
Okay. So is there language that would help, like incidental quarrying, quarrying where it's not the primary purpose of, we have some pretty big holes in the ground in Middlebury too.
Well, can I ask one more question of Chris?
Distinguish that?
If somebody wanted to come in and start a quarry someplace within Bristol, it would be impossible, yes?
No.
It would be impossible. Your zoning does not allow for it.
A
That's what I
quarry.
thought.
You're not talking
Quarry.
about resource extraction.
We're talking about quarrying.
We're just talking about quarrying.
Yes.
And again, my issue is the realities of how operations need to occur. We don't have the other part is, if you look at the geology of Bristol, it's not like we're out in Panton where there's the opportunity to do something, or in Barry where you have granite, or in Panton where you have panstone, where 100% quarrying, and that's the intent, is drilling, blasting, and slabbing. The quarrying that goes on here is they've got a working gravel pit. They've hit bedrock. They're allowed to go down to 500 feet. I'm just using arbitrary numbers. But to get there, they had to blast out some bedrock or some ledge that they occurred in there. All of that technically is quarrying and would not be allowed. And that's the issue, is that.
So can we find some language that includes at least and that is incidental to another allowed use for the property, which would include sand and gravel permitted pit? Might include that agricultural use also.
Okay, so is there a way to rewrite that sentence that?
Yeah, how about if you would be allowed in areas where as part of a resource extraction operation?
I think the term incidental too is important.
I'm not sure why we're debating this, because quarrying is not allowed in Bristol, period. End of story. Now, I understand what Chris is saying, but we don't allow it. So we're giving an implication here. Quarrying will be allowed only in areas where resource extraction is permitted. Well, we don't allow quarrying.
Well, but
why do we have it in here? Huh?
What Chris is saying, if I'm understanding him correctly, is that it is occurring as part of some of the gravel pit operations. It's not a major part of it, but it's an essential part, which would be hard and probably unreasonable to disallow. So we should recognize what's already happening. But I hear your point, Bill. We should not create the impression that we're going to allow people to start opening up.
Well, that's the impression I'm getting from that.
I know. So we have to
and this makes me very nervous too, because this could totally derail this process,
but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Well, right, but
I don't know. I just
is
think
right
this is
now the
slippery.
time.
This is
Is
really
right now the
slippery
time,
ground.
right in here. And
So,
this was, I
So-
just think it's really kind of a dangerous place to go right now. I'm not saying it's not important. It's just the nature, the history of the situation, the holdup, the last time. I mean, this is going to create a
Somebody who
concern.
wants to torpedo the plan, you make a valid point, and both you and Bill heard Chris differently than I did. And I think that's a big risk to run, because if you two heard it differently, I'm sure there will be others, and we can think of a couple who would. So maybe we find a way to punt that ahead, but recognize that there, by the technical definition of hitting ledge and having to deal with that ledge, that there is, under a technical definition of quarrying, that's going on already and has been for hundreds of years.
Chris, remember when Peaker came and talked to us a couple of years ago about their operation and the issue with quarrying that they were having?
Mhm.
Do you remember? So he's quarrying though, isn't he? Or is he not?
By definition, portions of his operation turn into quarrying operations.
Right. And that's all a known fact.
Right. It wouldn't matter. It's
But it shifts to Act 250. It's he's
Nope.
not being prohibited from quarrying.
correct, because he was able to do it before we passed
She
this
doesn't like the way he treats her mother. at all.
and the current zoning. So
That's such a
operation,
difficult.
same with the few other pits that are doing it. That is a pre-existing non-conformance is how that is qualified.
Mm-hmm.
So in the previous paragraph, and maybe to find the compromise, so it says this provision shall not be construed as permitting the extraction and processing of soil, sand, gravel, or rock solely for resale and incidental technical quarrying in pursuit of that, or
So is it something that we could alter the definition of quarrying in the zoning to acknowledge incidental, don't even call it quarrying, incidental,
blasting?
maybe it is better to say quarrying, but modify the definition in zoning to allow for incidental use in a.
Well, if you have resource extraction, it would be, and all of the processes that need to accompany that, which would seem to be, as what you're saying, Chris, is quarrying, because you're blasting, you have to do that.
I think that's
what you're saying, isn't it?
Another way of skinning the cat. And Kevin, we could say incidental disassembling of rock.
I mean, it is part of.
I think it should not. Yeah, I think we need to be very careful. I mean,
So, but being cautious also leaves us in ambiguous issue for another 8 years. And as a planning commission, that is
and
completely
I don't like that either.
impossible.
But
So let's try to do it the way Kevin suggested, or one of you. I had a little disruption here. Let's alter the definition of
extraction
to incorporate incidental rock reduction in size. The creation of smaller pieces of rock out of larger pieces of rock.
So that needs to be done in the zoning.
It could be. I think that's another way to accomplish the goal without unduly upsetting certain precincts of Bristol.
So
Okay.
if you started off the second sentence of that paragraph where it says quarrying, if you added the word standalone That means
folks feel.
quarrying operation can't occur. But then your follow-up sentence is what you're talking about, Bill, addresses just that. That would then allow you to use this to modify your zoning to meet the requirements.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Does that help with you, Bill, as far as what some of your concerns were?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody feel good about standalone quarrying and disassembling of rock? Somebody comes up with a better term.
That sounds too cute to me.
Well, if
Quarrying
if
with a small q.
the sentence is just standalone quarrying will continue to be prohibited in all zoning areas, do you have to continue with
period.
the stuff that's in
Period.
brackets?
Period.
Yeah, why can't we just have a
Period.
period there?
Yeah, I
Good.
agree.
After district.
That would do it, wouldn't it?
Yes. That sounds good.
Can we all live with that?
Well,
You too, Chris?
I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
as long as when you get to the zoning, you look at modifying, staying with the modification of your definitions of quarrying and extraction.
Okay, Katie, I'm writing that down for you. All right.
But we are, well, whatever.
But if we look way ahead, which sometimes planning commissions do,
Yeah.
there will come a time when we run out of readily available sand and gravel, and we will turn to quarrying to get the crushed stone.
And that's okay. That's right.
No, it won't be okay.
The risk writing that down. Well, that's supposed to be a joke, Katie. We'll save that for another rewrite.
All right. Are we ready to move on to
Rock and roll, Andrew.
industrial uses? Okay, I'm going to scroll down, and we'll try to keep this somewhat short because it's getting to be 8:45. So Bristol has a substantial history of industrial ventures. How do folks feel about removing some of the specific history?
Well, I
Well, we
can
have.
read the yellow here. Can you read that for me?
Sure.
Oh, okay. It's easier now.
I think part of why I took it out, I mean, it's fairly
All right.
historical, and then recent conversion, depending on when this plan was written. I don't know how recent it is at this point, or there may have been things that are more recent.
I don't think it's germane to have that in there.
Did it get moved to the resources section or cultural?
Is it anywhere in the plan? Because it's important.
Yeah.
Piece of the,
It's
it's
we can move
important
it to cultural.
information.
We can move it to cultural if it isn't there. I don't remember if folks are okay with moving that to.
I'm sorry, I was spacing a little bit. What are you moving?
The highlighted part here that I had crossed out and put in yellow so that Bill couldn't see it. I'll make it here just to simplify this section. Shouldn't be that big a deal, hopefully, in terms of actually changing things, but may offend some historically minded folks. So I can make sure that it's included in the cultural section if that would be helpful.
I think that's a better fit.
It's good history, but we can live without it. If you put it in the cultural, that's fine too. But
What about the last sentence? So that's talking about today.
Right.
yeah,
Oh, the 3 processing operation. Okay.
3 lumber
Or 3
companies
the
still
lumber
exist.
company.
Yep. Should I leave that in?
Yeah.
well,
And you can just take recently out. You can just say, and one of which converted from lumber to wood chip. Are they still wood chip manufacturer?
I'm going to
Yep.
defer to Bill on this. Okay,
Yep, they are.
Okay.
so we'll leave that clause in.
The whole industry is changing rapidly.
All right, so this line probably needs some work. I can go ahead and take out quarrying because, so the original, we have to go back to. So the town recognizes that some industries such as lumber mills and manufacturers of forestry products, although commonly regarded as heavy industry, can be situated and operated with no substantial offsite impact. I believe it originally said these historically important uses would not be prohibited. But I can look back and see what the original language was and read that. If you give me 1 second. Okay, so it said, the original sentence was, these historically important uses would therefore not be prohibited even where some of their primary activities take place outdoors.
That sounds a little better to me.
The original?
Yep.
Okay. I'm assuming you probably wrote it.
Well,
that was
might,
bold.
That might well be true.
Okay.
40 years ago.
Right.
Okay. I will change that back.
I'm pretty sure Bill did write that.
Okay. That's the original. And then there was a line about quarrying. To reiterate, the town does intend, however, I'll make this a different color, that quarrying be prohibited until the town has deliberated further on all the potential impacts of quarrying. That seemed redundant.
Which we have not done, is what Chris's big point. And
I think we're done with quarrying on the previous page, okay? So why don't we just take that out?
Folks okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So flood hazard areas. The only change that I have currently is that just an update that FEMA is currently in the process of updating the flood insurance rate maps by 2025. Do folks want to add more?
Do that.
What?
They don't want to rush into that.
No, they're taking their time for sure. It's only been since 1985, so that's 35 years old at this point.
And is there the off chance we'll actually do them digitally this time?
I think that's the hope. So you don't have to use the stretched maps that we have that are awesome.
Yeah.
Do folks have other additions or changes there?
I didn't.
Okay. The next change in blue here is one that Kevin recommended, making sure that the language matched the zoning or the unified development regulations and the downtown design review overlay. And we will make sure to have the map as part of it. Yep.
I made some changes on that too. Did you see that? Is this?
Okay.
Actually, I made a whole bunch of changes in that section.
Oh, Lord.
They're all good, I think.
I may have to go find your document.
I'll put my name on it.
I have yours. Did you mean the taking out of those?
No.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah. Well, I have it here, but it's dark here now. I can't read anything. Well, it should be on.
So the one that is on the screen is yours.
Okay.
So
Okay, it's virtually, all right, just wait a second. No, that doesn't look like, okay, that's not, it didn't go through,
Okay,
I
we're
guess.
going back to the one that I sent out.
Okay,
So there was a motion to get rid of in the flexibility and zone these.
could we back up to
Yep.
the downtown thing?
Yes.
So my comment was in the paragraph, virtually all development. The second line, that needs to be changed to Downtown Design Review Commission to be consistent with unified zoning.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
well, I had that too.
You can't claim credit, Katie.
Well, yeah, I can.
Kevin did it first.
Is there some development in the overlay district which does not have to be reviewed?
Yes.
Sheds with signs on them.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Because why do we say virtually all development if all development requires it?
Yeah, you're right.
Not all development requires it.
Oh,
Well,
In the downtown district?
in the overlay district?
That is correct.
Like what?
Hang on, I'll tell you.
who's looking that up?
I think Chris and I are both looking for it right now.
Because we've been discussing this lately.
So this, at least the document I have says all development.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's all development because it's whether or not a permit is required, whether or not a variance is required or sought. I don't know what is left that could be, that would be considered.
So there's only 4 criteria that the overlay district, the town review commission is pulled together for. Construction of a building, outbuilding, fence, or retaining wall. Addition to or alteration of the exterior of a building which increases or decreases the square footage of the building, whether enclosed or not. Any changes to an exterior wall of a building creating an opening, doors or windows, or filling them in, removing them. The roof line or a chimney, or materials used on an exterior walls, windows, railings, balusters, or roof. Or last but not least, demolition of a structure. So if somebody wants to put a sign up, technically by definition, that would be development. You do not need, you don't need a downtown review for a sign. There's a handful of those that don't require them. So there's a very small window why you pull them together. You have amazing review criteria, but a very tight window on why you would pull that commission together.
All right.
Okay.
So sounds like virtually maybe it stays in.
I mean, if you're interested, it's section 333 in the zoning.
But the plan comes first,
Also true.
correct?
So do you
Will
want
be defined
it
in the
to
plan.
be required for anything that could be considered development? You have to pull together the downtown review commission.
What are you saying?
Well,
Are you-
I think we're talking about the wagging the dog here. So
Right, the plan sets the tone.
But the zoning regulates what happens.
as determined by the plan. So
The plan can say whatever it wants. The zoning is what is upheld. It's what rules we have to follow as far as development in our community. The only time the plan is utilized in that capacity is when there's a challenge, usually in the Act 250 process. I do not use the town plan when I rule on a zoning application. It's
of
not
course you don't.
So I think the comment about between the zoning and this, if we change that from virtually and make it say all, we need to go back into the zoning and change all the criteria there to make sure there are no more loopholes of those that are not required for review.
And I don't, because whatever. I mean, we've been talking about this because over at the co-housing, there's a shed that was put in the front yard of
and
the co-housing.
and that should have gone to downtown review.
And it did not.
That's a building. It did not. It's in
They
violation.
just did, yeah. So this is why and I think that this is where, because then if you look at a shed in the zoning, yeah, it's allowed anywhere if it's under a certain square footage. But most people don't put it in their front yard.
is it
Actually,
with saying all development must be reviewed, and then the downtown design review commission could say, yeah, we don't need to look at this, but it has to go by them.
so my only concern is,
I think so.
so anything and everything that goes on there, that commission is going to have to review.
Well, I'm not on that commission.
That's what I'm saying. There's no way I'm going to sit on that commission. Nor would any of you. I mean, they'll be meeting twice a month for hearings.
But my question was, it says virtually all development. What is it that we're missing? If it's not, signs. I mean, they're buying into something when they want to, to be in this district. They're, it's a give and take thing. They're getting benefits by being under.
Most people didn't buy into it. Most people were placed in that district.
Right. They bought into it. Well.
Okay. So I think if something is proposed, they're going to have to find out whether it's going to need to go to the, virtually doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room, and there is going to have to be some discussions. So for now,
I don't care if it says virtually all development, but it's talking about any modification to a site. Putting a structure on a site is a modification to a site.
The first criteria of putting together the Downtown Review Commission, it clearly states building.
Right.
So it was missed. I understand that. They built it reading the one section they wanted out of zoning, not following all of it. There's also the question whether or not it being that was a PUD, that the site plan was modified by adding that structure, and that the site plan review shouldn't have been punted to you guys for review as well. So there's lots of pieces to that. The homeowner read one section, did what they thought, and now we have to figure out the consequences of dealing with that woodshed that's sitting in the front yard of the co-housing.
Okay, well, let's just stick to this type. I brought that up, I know. But we just want to make this clear. I felt it was pretty clear the way it's written. I mean, I don't have a big problem with virtually or, because there could be some really minor thing that would be ridiculous. This I don't think is minor, but that's.
Okay. Let's stick with virtually, and hopefully we'll have a downtown design review commission that does on as much as they can without meeting biweekly. So I took out the line, it is acknowledged that the zoning provisions that enable this process are in need of revision, unless that is a permanent feature of the plan. Basically acknowledging that they are always in need of revision, and will be, but I think it's okay to take that out. Folks okay with that? We're close in.
Yes.
And then I think we talked about this last time, but taking out some of the specific rules for flexibility and zoning densities, the lot size averaging and the density-based zoning. How do folks feel about that?
I don't think that should be in there. That's just incredibly broad.
We aren't getting rid of the idea, though.
But the idea, I think we should leave the flexibility and zoning densities. Well, we got to take the, no, last sentence.
Yeah, I mean,
that's basically what we're talking about before. I mean, we're just saying, let's be flexible to try to do the best solution.
Like I will say, though, that these two particular ideas are one in which there was broad agreement. So can we do like we did on the extraction, summarize one sentence, two ideas as an example of what we're supporting?
yeah, so I think so that we don't have to throw out this entire paragraph if we just say shall seek to incorporate these lot size averaging and cluster development into its zoning ordinance.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, I'll make that change.
And I'll simply say that both ideas are ones in which people who believe strongly in property rights, in my experience, broadly support.
Well, I think they're great ideas. It's just that I think they're just two pieces of a bigger set of tools. I guess that's what
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm trying to find common ground, Katie.
No, it's good. I think we're on the same page.
Yep.
Believe it or not.
I believe it every now and then.
Okay.
Oh, I just have to ask a question. What is happening with lot size averaging and cluster development? What have we done?
We just listed them instead of getting into the details of what they are.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I assume they will still stay in the zoning in more described form.
Okay.
Yes. Hope that's a correct assumption, Andrew.
Easy there, Bill. Easy now. It's getting late.
Okay. Okay.
We're all getting punchy.
That's right.
I got to go home and tend to my skunk.
That's right.
Wait, did someone get sprayed today?
Just make sure he doesn't make any noise.
Yeah. No, this is my last meeting. I came home to a sprayed dog. Okay, so Katie, I believe you suggested a goal for the village planning area to encourage infill development of a variety of housing types. It sounds like
Excuse me.
goes along.
To me,
the
that's
paragraph
what we were
before.
talking about before.
Right, so we should.
There just wasn't anything in that. So if you all agree.
Can we change that to just say to meet housing needs instead of the current? Because we're also talking about future needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the second bullet there, I noticed that nowhere in this plan that I've seen, we talk about a pedestrian-friendly area. We never talk about a bicycle-friendly area.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to do today, is to incorporate these things into that text. And I had bicycle, then I took it out.
Okay.
But we can put bicycle in here, but then it seems like we need to put it in the narrative.
Is it just the downtown, or is it the entire village planning area that we want to be pedestrian and bicycle-friendly?
We do have, we do have a transportation section, which I think that is an explicit goal. Were there other suggestions? Kevin, did you have comments on the goals and policies?
I'm trying to pull it up. I'm trying to pull it up. And
I think I have the one you sent, and I didn't see any notes there. Just double check that this is the same. Yeah, I don't think I have any on this version, but it's possible you sent them before.
No, yeah, exactly. So this, whatever the one that we had for our last meeting would have them on it.
Let me see if I can pull you up here. I know we kind of talked through these at a meeting.
So I don't know if this is a good time to talk about this. We've talked about it before. I'm not clear. Different ones of us are making modifications, and then we all get together sight unseen at these meetings. And it seems to me like we could send stuff to everybody as long as it's not responded to.
So you can send it out to the group, is my understanding.
But nobody should be responding to it.
Right. It should only be in the meetings. So Kevin, here's the one that you sent last time. Don't know if the little red marks are saying that those are places where you made changes.
Yeah.
But I think we also spent a full meeting on restructuring these.
We did.
I don't know that in the interest of tonight's time, if folks want to look over those one more time and just make sure that they're all right. And if there are additional suggestions, we take it up next time.
So I found it if you want to go over it.
Sure. You want to tell me where the first one is?
Okay, underneath goal 2.
Yep.
I just lost it. Here it is. I'm suggesting where it says support Bristol Core's work of enhancing the downtown, that we realign what their initiatives are and what I think is a priority is. So it would read, support Bristol Core's work of enhancing the downtown by strengthening local businesses, promoting the improvement of streetscape aesthetics, and organizing seasonal events for increased exposure of Bristol.
And get rid of the other guys.
Well, it's all the same thing, but the last
Right.
thing that their task was is to strengthen local businesses, and I
Right,
think that would be
Right.
the first thing that we'd want on the list, you know?
right. That's true.
Okay, so just reordering that.
Yeah. I don't believe I got rid of anything.
Okay.
And then on goal 5,
Hold on, let me just note this. So reorganizing that. Are folks okay with reorganizing the Bristol core work?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as long as it matches what we say in the narrative, like in the body of the text.
yeah, like I
Okay.
said, I just reorganized the things in what I perceive to be the importance of their activities.
Right, and I think we do talk about Bristol core and that was a requirement of the downtown designation that they be formed. Okay, so goal 5.
Goal 5, the second bullet, the town will seek a reasonable balance between the needs of residents who live, and I changed within the village planning area and those that live in other. I changed that to residents who live between planning areas, because I don't think, to me, it doesn't seem like we should be singling out the village planning area only for that.
Where's that? Which one is
Bullet
that?
number 2, goal 5.
Read that again, Kevin.
So I would change bullet number 2 to read, striking within the village planning area for those who live in others. So it would read, the town will seek a reasonable balance between the needs of residents who live between planning areas.
So I guess
You could just make it live within different planning areas.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
live
between,
areas.
where is that? The fourth dimension.
so.
Well, my interpretation is you wouldn't have one planning area that's inconsistent with what people are in another planning area.
Right, no, you're
exposed
right.
to.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It's basically
And I don't-
balancing the needs of all the residents. not-
Exactly. I don't think it just pertains to the village planning area.
Right.
The needs of residents who live in all the plant,
Yeah, that makes more
Between.
sense.
Sure.
Or, yeah, all would work, but
who live,
No, planning areas.
personally, I don't care what's going on in the conservation district because it's not adjacent to me.
Yeah, and the way we restructured it, the village planning area sort of has its own section, so it doesn't. I mean, I understand why it was there, was to, make, it sounds like, from my limited experience, to make sure that the village residents didn't get all the attention. Or
Was to allay the tension between those two particular regions.
right. Okay,
I think
are folks all right with that?
People feel pretty comfortable that there's not going to be extraction in the village planning area.
No quarrying.
That's right, Phil.
All right, I think we've made it to the bottom.
I got one more.
Oh no, go ahead.
So the next to the last bullet in goal 5 says effective property owners will be notified if land use regulation changes are being considered that will in any way impact possible uses of their property. And I understand what's being said there, but how do we do that?
Well, that's an old compromise too, Kevin, going back many, many years. The very original proposal was that they should get notice in the mail. And then it was brought to our attention, as everybody knows, the changes are published in the newspaper. And now, of course, in this day and age, there's all types and kinds of to bring changes to the attention. But I would say this, we in the days didn't have any rules about notifying neighbors. I think that's now standard, is it not, Chris? Neighbors are automatically notified.
Somewhat.
For a permit proposal, for a land use or zoning permit. But I would say this, if you're going to make a change, and this was the idea of it, Kevin, which I'm sure you know, if you're going to make a change that has a significant effect on a landowner, we have a responsibility to let them know. Because very frankly, in probably 80 to 90% of the time, the landowner never knows until after the fact. And that's wrong. So that's the history.
So I don't dispute any of that, but I just think it's vague enough so the guy that's expecting a letter and it shows up in the Addison Independent that he never reads, he's gonna have a problem. So I don't know, and maybe I'm being overly reactive, but I think it's vague enough that it could be subjective on how people expect to get notified.
That's a fair point.
And Kevin, when we wrote that, we were intentionally vague, noting that technology and notification methods over the 5 to 8 years that these documents are in place change on a regular basis. And trying to come up, the intent is just that we'll make sure that if something's going on, that the public is told before they just get slammed through the Planning Commission and Select Board, is really what the intent of that line was.
So would it be reasonable to say something that they'd be notified through public notification processes or something? Or am I getting, I'm just concerned about the guy that's expecting a letter because something happened differently,
Now, so you actually can, when in the zoning, there's also a section where notification of permitting, and I think also notification of rule changes, that's also handled by state statute, that you have to notify of public hearing and whatever the methodologies that are utilized are. I won't like it. I think you're being a little too sensitive on it. I think it's okay the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't say directly.
Doesn't it assume the town will know that who every affected property owner will be? And is that correct?
Well, I think we have to allow some latitude for judgment. What really prompted this was, frankly, in the old days, when people find out about a zoning change, sometimes years after it happened, or a plan change, it affected them very significantly as they could use their property. People would say, well, we put a notice in the Addison Independent. Well, one person out of 100 reads those notices, and a lot of people don't even get the Addison Independent. So we're trying to create some responsibility for the Planning Commission to let people know. I'll give you an example, what we were talking about tonight. There is a real diversity of opinion about whether there should be more density allowed in what are now single-family homes. And that would be a profound change to increase density, and people should be informed about it. Does that mean sending a letter to everybody? No, not anymore. But I'll give you another example. I'm thinking of one town that's in our county, and I found out that they completely eliminated the right to build a house on conservation land. And the landowners were never told about it. That's stripping away a property right. That's wrong. So I think I'm willing to stay with the language that is not very specific, but at least flags the consideration and the responsibility that the Planning Commission has to help people become aware when a rule is being changed that's going to have a significant effect on them.
Okay. I feel like, I mean, this is under our goal of having a fair, transparent, and balanced process. And I think I agree that leaving it open-ended but making sure that it is in there so that there is some attempt at notification, whether it's direct or mailing or signs or whatever the methods evolve to over the next 8 years. All right. Katie.
What? What did you do before? I have a couple questions. So did you talk about timeline, or do we not know that yet?
We have not talked about timeline yet. We also did not get a chance to recruit somebody for the regional planning.
Wait, did not get a chance or did not have any luck at recruiting anyone?
Let's
pick a number between
until you got back.
Pick a number between 1 and Did you talk about it at all?
No, because we were going to have a discussion when you got on what the duties were.
Well, I sent everybody I did send everybody an outline. Did you all get that?
I did not.
Did anyone get that?
Yep.
Yeah, I did.
It was with the agenda. Come on, Bill. I know you have it somewhere.
Oh, okay. All
okay,
right.
so I'm not going to go over that. You can dig it up. But it basically talks about, well, does everybody know? I guess it's the bigger question. Or Bill, we have Bill here. He could explain being a representative because you're going as an alternative now, right? You're going to be an alternate now, right, Bill?
That's correct.
So Bristol is allowed, or Bristol is based on our population, can have 3 members on the Regional Planning Commission. So the Regional Planning Commission is a commission different from our commission because they don't, but they do similar planning work. It's really more about committees, wouldn't you say, Bill?
Yes.
But then there are monthly meetings, and each town really should have someone from their own municipal planning commission to sit on that board. So because Bill is going from a full-time commissioner or full commissioner to a alternate, we need to have someone from the planning commission to sit on the full commission.
So won't it be ultimately an appointment by the select board?
It will be, but they've asked us to discuss it. And I believe that they, you can request to do, they're just not going to pick and choose. I mean, they want someone to be interested in doing it, obviously. But I think it's interesting, it just working there as staff, it's really opened my eyes more to the more regional perspective, the broader perspective, and helps with the work on the local level, because you see what's happening in all the 21 towns that are in Addison County. So if you're on the commission, you then are typically a member of at least one committee, but can be a member of more. And some of the committees are Energy Committee. They do a lot of work with enhanced energy plans and other things. Natural Resources, and I don't know, Andrew could tell you more about that. Act 250 Committee, the Local Government Committee, which is a committee that works with individual towns to kind of help them with their town plans and zoning, and then reviews them. Housing committee, which I'm working with those people now. I'm working on the regional housing plan. And am I missing any other ones?
Transportation.
Transportation. Yeah, that's a big one.
That's actually a separate representative, I believe.
Yes.
So
unless you really want to do both.
So anyways, you know, you don't get paid, do you, Bill?
I never did it. If I met,
You never got paid?
Whoops. And you get, essentially, you're going to be Andrew's boss, my boss. That's the bonus. So anyways, it's a good thing. And right now we don't have a lot of representation for being the second largest community in the county.
No.
And we really should have more, we should have more representation.
Where do they meet?
Excuse me?
Where do they meet?
Like this at the moment.
What? But
yeah, well, in our office in Middlebury.
Okay.
But at the moment,
but they're
all
doing
digital.
Zoom. Yeah, it's all Zoom. I was going to ask you, Bill, if you'd be interested. You right where you came to that housing presentation last summer. Same spot.
Well, I know how to get there.
That's good.
You're in.
We'll talk about it.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you're interested, but anyways. So, and we need more than one member. So, I mean, if more than one of you is interested, just because we are slotted for 3 members and 3 delegates. And right now we just have 1 commissioner and 1 alternate.
So Katie.
Did I say delegate? I said that wrong. I'm sorry. It's getting late. What, Chris? I'm sorry.
As we spoke the other day with Valerie, are you reaching out to all the other boards to see if there's interest, or is she?
I haven't yet. I wanted to start here.
Okay.
But that.
I see that Rob is not making eye contact, so maybe.
No, Rob does not want to do it. I can tell. Without even seeing his face.
I only have enough time for 1 commission, so.
And we don't want to lose Rob. Even though they do need some young blood. And you're young.
Easy now, easy.
Well, I'm not referring to you.
Oh, okay.
That only leaves me.
Right. That's why I tapped you. Okay.
Okay. So
that's that. And then, so we don't have the timeline yet, right, Chris? But it's going to be tight. I can tell.
So
there's always March.
Are folks up for a June 30th, 2 weeks from tonight meeting? And we'll try to keep it short.
Because we're going to go the first. Oh, what is the first Tuesday in July?
7th.
That's the first Tuesday. So that would be the next meeting. We get a little.
Okay,
we have an extra week in June. The
what
7th.
date is it? June 7th?
Yeah.
We're almost done.
Is there? I assume there's no 4th of July festivities in Bristol this year.
Oh, were you bringing that sad subject up?
Well, I didn't know.
And we do it on Zoom.
You haven't been 4th of July
in the outhouse.
Right. Put the fireworks on Zoom too.
There we go. So yeah, 7th.
Okay, July 7th.
Tell me how tired you are tomorrow.
Well, maybe we can pull it all together.
We've got the population and housing section. I felt like there were only minor comments. If other folks have comments and want to send them, it was mostly correcting.
Kevin had a lot of comments, but I can kind of, I actually addressed a bunch of the stuff that you were.
A lot of my comments, particularly in the goals, had to do with
who's going to pay for that.
I mean, all these commissions and trust funds and all this kind of stuff that we're talking about.
It's just stuff I'm pulling from what other communities are doing. It's ideas. I mean, I guess sometimes it's just ideas. If we don't want to put them in, we'll take them out. but I put them
Yeah,
in. It's stuff
mean,
that people have found that works.
it's all motherhood and apple pie, but it's like nobody's fessing up the dollars.
Right. Well, we don't, I guess my feeling is we don't really know what's going to work until we try different things. So, all right.
Okay, so maybe that's the place to start next time on the goals section of the housing, and then try to move into some of our other sections that we need to finish.
Oh, another comment I had was, or another question is, the population graph has
Yep.
lines going up and down, and I
You mean
thought one of
Yeah.
those was from old data or something like that. Is that true?
The one that skyrockets and shows Bristol's population doubling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's probably a little bit off.
I tried to get Andrew to take that out, but he didn't want
I was trying to give a range.
Well,
Definitely not going to go above that.
I don't know. Well, we can talk about it next time.
Okay, I think that's a pretty simple thing to take out. Basically, the projections show Bristol is either flat or lowering, but as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, COVID may change everything. So who knows? We may have a sudden influx of people moving from urban areas to beautiful.
From out of state.
Well, we didn't all die off. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't the only population graph or graph that shows Bristol's numbers skyrocketing the median home value one?
He was talking about something else.
There's a population here. I can pull it up because I had it.
This one.
So this one
Projection.
from the regional plan, which is pretty dated. And it was data going back to like 2000, maybe 2010. But yeah, so the more updated ACCD projections that are town by town, which is really the most detailed thing we have, show either a slight decline or a large decline, but they both start at a lower point than Bristol currently is, so they're already off. So maybe we just do a nice range of, and not be specific about whose models, or admit that we don't really know. But I can definitely take out the high one because I think that's pretty well off the table. I agree, Kevin.
It's kind of, I don't know, this is a tangent. The Unified School District is having an assessment done where they're looking at student populations and whatnot. It'd be kind of interesting to see where that comes in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wasn't that information in that last package that they sent out in the wintertime?
Yeah, it's in there, but that was, well, not that, but that was developed by the district. They have a consultant coming in that's going to look at it at a whole lot greater depth.
Oh, that would be good to, well,
Yeah,
maybe too late.
maybe, but
yeah, because we're months away yet.
Mm-hmm.
What's for breakfast, for Christ's sakes? Okay.
okay, Bill wants to go. Oh. Okay, I'm turning off my screen share.
Yep.
You wrap up the agenda.
Oh, okay. Where is the agenda?
We did not get to the implementation section.
No.
So I think next time we need to start on population housing and
Yeah, we need to do that. Okay.
I got that noted.
Did you take care of the minutes?
I did it.
Great. You wrote them, but did you approve the last minutes?
We did.
Okay,
We
great.
approved the last minutes.
Okay. Okay, so.
What do you think? I'm a rookie or something?
Well, I am. Okay, someone needs to make a motion.
I moved to adjourn.
Yeah. Second.
Yeah. Done.
Second? We got a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Good
see you in
night.
3 weeks. Happy 4th of July.
Yes, you
Mhm.
Happy
too.
paving.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we have to turn off the recording.
Yeah, I can. No, he'll take care of that. Whoops.
Okay.